Morant ruling is coming after the NBA Finals. Morant was suspended for 8 games by the NBA back in March for an incident where he broadcast himself on Instagram displaying a gun in a suburban Denver club, and was suspended by the Grizzlies last month after another video showed Morant displaying what appeared to be a gun yet again. Here's the commissioner with more.
In terms of the timing, we've uncovered a fair amount of additional information. I think since I was still asked about the situation, I would say we probably could have brought it to a head now, but we made the decision, and I believe the Players Association agrees with us, that it would be unfair to these players and these teams in the middle of this series to announce the results of that investigation, and it seemed better to park that at the moment, at least any public announcement. And my sense now is that shortly after the conclusion of the finals, we will announce the outcome of that investigation.
Okay. JJ, I want to start with you here. What's your biggest takeaway from what Adam Silver just said?
The key word there is uncovered additional information. We can only go on what we know, and so we don't know what the additional information is. And now, look, I wouldn't even describe it as support for Ja. I was just pointing out some level of hypocrisy when we talked ago. I'll reiterate some things that I said then. Ja needs some level of punishment. Now, what the thing that I took away on May 16th when Malika interviewed Adam at the draft lottery in Chicago was that it didn't seem like there was a protocol in place. It didn't seem like there was a clear understanding of the requirements Ja needed to meet. It didn't seem like they had talked about further punishment if there was another incident. And the reason I bring that up is because there's no blueprint for this in the collective bargaining agreement. And Ja will certainly have the union on his side, and I assume whatever punishment they have decided on, it's in association with the CBA and with our union. So ultimately, I don't know what the number is, but like I said a month ago, there clearly needs to be some level of punishment, and Ja needs to take responsibility for this.
Go ahead, S.A.
Go ahead, Perk.
So, when it comes down to Ja, JJ, I've never been on the show with you to talk about this topic. This has been transpiring for a while now. I talked with Stephen and Molly, and I told them about my private conversations with Ja before any of this social media stuff had come about. It was other things that were circulating, but I'm not even about to get into that. I want to see y'all when I say this. I want to see y'all. I want to be on the screen with y'all. I want y'all to be open-minded with me on this because I'm not dishing it out there for a hot take. I'm actually being real and I'm being honest and serious right now. Ja Morant, if he can't change, my thing is the guy is so box office. Hell, his shoes sold out within less than, I believe, 48 hours or a day when they drop. So, the kids still love him. He's a generational talent. I believe he still is going to be in the league for a very, very, very long time. But if another incident like this happened, and the way that it is transpired, back-to-back incidents, I'm ready to say right now that I think Ja Morant, it might be best for him to actually get out of Memphis and go to a different organization for his own well-being. Because you think about certain situations, like we know what the Memphis culture is like. Hell, I was about to go to Memphis. We know, like if you in the African-American community, you know about the rap songs, you know about Young Dolph, you know about Yo Gotti, you know about Finesse Two Times, you know about all these rappers, and you know about the culture and everything that's going on in Memphis. Hell, you see them sitting courtside, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying for Ja Morant, in my opinion, I actually think it would be better for him in another city on another team, having another change of scenery where he could actually lock in on the game of basketball and actually lock in on his family. That's just my opinion.
Stephen A., what do you think of the fresh start?
First of all, Kendrick might be right. It remains to be seen, but the reality of the situation is whether we like it or not. Once you're an adult, whether you're an adult in your 20s or you're an adult in your 40s or 50s, you've got to make your own decisions. That's what you have to deal with, and that's what Ja Morant's going to have to deal with. In terms of JJ and what he alluded to weeks ago, just to reiterate, without getting into it, I completely stand 1,000% with what J.J. Redick said in terms of the hypocrisy on the part of some politicians and the kind of things that they were doing, but people were in an uproar about Ja Morant. I don't disagree with J.J. Redick and what he said one scintilla. Let me be very, very clear about that. Having said all of that, let's get to the bottom line of all of this, because what preceded this discussion was the press conference yesterday that Adam Silver had, and he used the word uncovered. What we have to understand, without engaging in too much speculation, Adam Silver was clearly saying, we've learned more than we knew before. Now, what that is, we don't know. But we do know, A, it's a problem, and B, it's a bigger problem for Ja Morant. And so it begs the question, what's an appropriate punishment and stuff like that? I've heard people talking about Ja Morant should get suspended for the year. Let me be very clear. I don't agree with that at all. I think that's excessive. There are other people who have said he should be suspended for at least half the season. I don't agree with that. I think that's excessive. But I do think 25 games is about right. And let's understand the biggest reason why it would be about right. One part is the transgression. The other part is, even though they broke no laws, as J.J. Redick pointed out weeks ago, it was in violation of no laws. Ja Morant didn't break any laws and he didn't harm anybody. But you're representing the NBA brand and there's a responsibility that comes along with it. The biggest reason that Ja Morant has to suffer some consequences because that Adam Silver's going to be the one to hand it down. It's because Adam Silver is basically gave indications of feeling betrayed. Like Ja Morant was in his face, told him one thing, and did the other. And when you're a commissioner, that doesn't fly. My last point is this, JJ, just for a lot of people listening out there. The commissioner, I understand this, you got Players Association and you got representation with the union, and it's the commissioner. This is what I would advise folks and young folks on the come up in corporate America. I'm very, very big on this. Say no comment. I'm talking about when you're talking to your bosses, somebody in an authoritative position to influence your life and your livelihood. When you are asked questions, do not lie. Don't comment. Don't touch it. Evade the issue or whatever. But the one thing that you do not do, because you will ultimately suffer, is when you lie to somebody in an authoritative position to influence your life. It never works out well for you.
Can we come back to this? I know we got to go to break, but I just need to make one more point. Can we please come back to this? Because it's key.
You know what? No, Perk, you can make it now, because you brought up an interesting take in terms of sometimes you have to remove yourself from a toxic situation, and if that becomes toxic, and go to another city.
Yeah, so here's my thing, okay? We have to realize this. The league is what made up of, and I don't want to get the percentages wrong, but I believe it's over 70% African Americans. Majority of the African Americans that it's made up of come from similar backgrounds, meaning coming from the hood, the projects, single parent homes, things to that nature. They have so many guys and young players that look up to Ja Morant. And I just talked about how his shoes sold out and things to that nature. And we talked about, and I'm not sitting up here coming at you, JJ or Stephen A, about when y'all said he didn't commit a crime, but he somewhat did commit a crime to the African American community, because so many young African Americans look up to him. I'm in AAU basketball every single weekend. I got 2 sons that play. They got Ja Morants on their feet. So at the end of the day, you cannot allow this to be acceptable that you're flashing a gun. That's number one. Number two, you don't want to hurt the next generation that's coming up. The great thing that happened for the NBA is, guess what? It went global, right? We talked about that. It went global. But guess what? We're not having those type of problems out of guys like Jokic and Giannis and Joel Embiid. And I named those guys, Luka Doncic. 4 players that are in our top, in my opinion, top 7 players in this league, we're not having problems out of those guys. So I don't want him to hurt the generation for the African-American kids that are in America that are trying to come up and get to where he's at.
Yeah.
Because guess what? The game is global. It's more competition now, and we have to be mindful that it could limit some roles or limit opportunities, because it's the first thing before somebody hand you the keys, they're going to say, can we trust you? Can we trust you to hand the keys that you're going to do the responsible thing to carry our franchise?
No, I appreciate what you're saying, and very fitting as it's Gun Violence Awareness Day. We will